For the first time since both companies were founded more than 100 years ago, both Canadian Pacific and Canadian National Railways are not running. The two companies unable to come to a deal with more than 9,000 workers locked out of a core part of the Canadian economy. Mackenzie Gray joins us now from Ottawa to break down what is keeping the two sides apart. Good morning, Max. So bring us up to speed. We know this all started just after midnight. What's the latest on these railroads grinding to a halt?
12:01 Thursday Eastern Time in the morning, both of the railways locking out their unionized Teamster employees, which has ground rail traffic essentially in this country to a complete halt. These are the only two large railways, and they have a massive network across the entire country, meaning that goods $1 billion worth of day that normally travels by the rails are not going to be moving today and for the foreseeable future going forward because the sides do not seem to be very close. We've been speaking with the Teamsters, CN, and CP for the last week or so now, and it's been clear from the beginning that these two sides have not been close. In the statements that all sides put out last night, they're saying they're willing to come to the table and talk, but there still seems to be some major gaps. Not on the things that when we normally talk about strikes are the issues. You know, wages don't seem to be a huge problem right now. Really, from the union perspective, they're talking about safety concerns, and the core issues are really around scheduling, how much rest time, fatigue issues the unions say, and then on the side, in particular with CN, the union says that they are putting forward a forced relocation program, saying that workers would not have the ability to be able to say where they would work from. From the CN side, at least, they say, look, this isn't a forced relocation program. There's additional money that people are able to get. It's for a 90-day period. These things are totally false. Really public barbs between all sides in this situation. They've had federal mediators involved, but they have not been able to bridge any of the gaps. We've seen the workers locked out, and now we're seeing Teamsters across the country on the picket lines outside their workplaces. So certainly a challenging day for the Canadian economy and potential many issues going forward if this lockout continues for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, for sure. We've all known that for a while now. And you spoke with the Labour Minister on Wednesday, also aware of the implications of this work stoppage. What, if anything, is the federal government willing to do to end this disruption?
Well, Stephen Kinnan, also the Labour Minister, echoed the idea that the two sides are quite far apart. He had met with CN and CP as well as the Teamsters, making it clear that the federal government wants a deal. Chrystia Freeland yesterday saying it would be sabotaging the Canadian economy to have this happen. Well, it's now happened. It's in the early stages of that. But the federal government does have powers they could use to be able to end this lockout situation. Two things. One, they could force binding arbitration, something that the railways asked the Labour Minister for, and he rejected. The other idea they could use is legislating them back to work. I asked Steve McKinnon about that. Here's what he had to say.
I'm not going to get into those kinds of what-ifs, but Parliament isn't sitting, and Parliament is not something that can be recalled on a dime. So again, I don't think it's useful to speculate on these things. I think it's only useful to tell the parties, do the work, get a deal, and fulfill your responsibilities to the economy and to the country.
So the two options the federal government has, it doesn't seem like they're willing to use at this point in time, but obviously that situation could change if this strike continues on for a while. Lockout, I should say.
For sure. But in the meantime, Mackenzie, what are we up against here? What's the economy up against? What are Canadians up against with the goods that are likely to be held up because of this stoppage?
Yeah, $1 billion a day in goods that move across the railways nationally. And it's all kinds of things that touches the Canadian economy. It wasn't just yesterday at 12:01 when the railways shut down that goods stopped moving. There's kind of been a progressive shutdown across the board. That's actually the reason why CN has said they needed to lock the workers out. They didn't think that the 72-hour strike notice that the union had given would be enough to be able to safely shut the railways down. So many chemicals haven't been moving for a number of days, the most concerning of which would be chlorine. It's used in drinking water to treat drinking water, and there have been concerns from the chemical industry in Canada that there could be, within 2 weeks or so, some cities that would run out of chlorine, potentially having boil water advisories, limiting use of water. We've reached out to a number of big cities. Toronto, as an example, says they have 3 weeks supply of chlorine on hand to be able to deal with this. Ottawa, Vancouver, Calgary also saying they would be able to get things by truck and are not concerned about it. The issues would likely be in smaller, more remote cities where it could be more difficult to get these things to. But outside of that, look, harvest season is coming up or started for some farmers across the country. They're not going to be able to move their goods to port and get them out the door, seeing things pile up. Same thing with food that would be on the railways too. So all kinds of different things touching the whole Canadian economy. And CN has warned that every day that there is a lockout in this situation, on the back end, once this situation is handled, it will take 3 to 5 days to be able to move the goods that are not going to be able to move. So it's not just the front end issues of things being closed, it's the back end issues of being able to have things start moving again and deal with the backload of goods that are going to be able to move. So this is clearly a very negative situation for the Canadian economy and a difficult situation for the federal government to be able to navigate at this point.
Absolutely. But thanks for your insight and for the update in the meantime. That's Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa.